Finding a job is tough right now for thousands of Floridians. So when word of a new company coming to a small Bay Area town spread, people had high hopes.
Rural Hardee County gave this company millions of dollars, but as 10 News investigator Mike Deason discovered, a group of powerful politicians without any company and without any product already had their own plans for that money.
Welcome to Hardee County. It's about an hour east of Sarasota, and this rural county is worlds away from the life most of us know. Not only is Hardee one of the smallest counties in the state, it's also one of the poorest, with nearly 29% of the people living below the poverty level.
So, how long have you been looking for a job?
About a year and a half.
Tell me.
And just nothing out there. There's just nothing here.
This woman, we will call Teresa, is so embarrassed about being out of work, she asked us not to show her face. In the time she's been out of work, she's gone to the Hardee County Workforce Office twice a week, hoping to find anyone who will hire a 55-year-old woman.
I don't know what the future holds for me, but, I just keep plugging along one day at a time.
Does it scare you?
Yeah, sure it does. That's a lot of days I feel like I'm one step away from being under the bridge.
Teresa might have been able to cash in on a $2.6 million economic development grant that the county was handing out, but it wasn't in the cards for her because some powerful people already had their own plan for the money.
I'm not interested in giving an interview.
Meet Tampa State Representative Jamie Grant. His company, LifeSync Technologies, pitched a bold plan to county officials. Give the company $2.6 million, and LifeSync would create a cloud-based medical records firm and bring jobs to Hardee County. Public records indicate Grant had powerful allies and partners, including State Representative Jason Broder from Orlando, State Representative Ben Albritton of Hardee County, and his brother, Hardee County Insurance Agency owner Joe Albritton.
Your facts are off there, Mike. You need to check your facts.
Well, Joe Albritton wasn't involved in
Joe Albritton has no equity in my company, has never had any equity in my company.
But we did check the facts. And look what we found in the minutes from the Hardee County agency that handed out the money. Joe Albritton, who was on the board that gave Grant the money, abstains from voting on an issue involving Grant's company because he's a part owner. In addition, Joe Albritton abstained at another meeting, and his disclosure form says both he and his brother, Representative Ben Albritton, could receive special gain from LifeSync.
The allegation that anybody that was involved in the grant process received equity that was related to a legislator or that a legislator gave equity to is just completely offensive.
But critics of the LifeSync deal suggest what is offensive is that it appears the deck was stacked because the head of the county agency that issued the grant is this man, Jim C. C just happens to be the uncle of the Albritton brothers and shares office space with Joe Albritton. Their company received millions of dollars.
No.
They didn't receive $2.6 million?
They did. The company.
The company.
Not them personally.
No, but they were part of the company.
Not them personally.
But you don't see
Not them personally.
But they were part of that entity.
Not them personally.
But it doesn't stop there. Meet Sue Burge, the chair on the board. Burge's son was also hired by the company. You don't think it opens you up to someone saying it creates an appearance of impropriety?
I can't help what people's opinions are. I just know that he was qualified for the job.
And Jim C., who approved the grant money, says the same thing about his son, who was also hired by the company.
Or I threw in my 2 cents and said, you need to hire my son or we're not going to give you any money. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I don't, just from appearance.
That's your insinuation.
Well, the insinuation is that it might look
That's your insinuation.
But it might look funny that your son and the chairman's son.
And when I've told the other people the truth, they don't want to hear the truth.
But the truth that the legislators involved in the company in Hardee County don't want anyone to hear about is this scathing report from the Auditor General, which said the $2.6 million should never have been given to the lawmakers' company, LifeSync. It cites several reasons. 1, the company wasn't legally qualified to get the money. 2, the company didn't offer proof it was capable of making it all happen. 3, there wasn't a plan in place to see how LifeSync was using the money. And finally, the Auditor General contends the $2.6 million didn't bring any economic benefit to Hardee County. What about the Auditor General? Was the Auditor General totally off base?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And while the Auditor General's office here in Tallahassee is charged with looking into improprieties like it found in Hardee County, Grant contends that the Auditor General and this audit are completely wrong. And everything he and Hardee County did was completely right.
It's discouraging, it's disheartening, you know, and it's despicable.
And what muddies the picture even more is that the politicians who got the $2.6 million violated their agreement with Hardee County and sold their interest in the grant money and the product they never developed. In return, they got more than 1 million shares of stock from the new company. Meantime, since the Auditor General visited Hardee County, the $2.6 million has created a total of 10 jobs. And 3 have gone to relatives of those involved in handing out the money. Stay tuned. More to come.
Much more to come. Thank you, Mike.
News at 11.
Good evening. I'm Heather Van Ness.
And I'm Reginald Roundtree. Thank you for joining us. Money is tight at the Tampa Housing Authority. The agency says that they're having trouble making ends meet.
But the 10 News investigators found that the THA, whose mission is to help poor families put a roof over their heads, is not having any problems putting their own staff in fancy hotels all across the country. 10 News investigator Mike Deason crunched the numbers and has a story you'll see only on 10.
The Tampa Housing Authority gets $79 million a year to provide for Tampa's most needy citizens, some who are living in less than desirable public housing. But the authority says it's struggling to do more with less.
We're still expected to do the same thing that we've been doing in public housing for the last 10 years with less money. We can't continue to maintain public housing as we see it today based on our funding level.
While the THA is singing the blues over funding cuts, the agency still seems to have plenty of money for travel. From the streets of San Francisco to the French Quarter in New Orleans, from Nashville, the Music City, to the Windy City of Chicago, New York, Savannah, Washington, D.C., Charleston, Boston. The investigators analyzed the agency records. In the past 3 years, the Tampa Housing Authority has spent more than $500,000 on travel and training and is budgeted to spend $234,000 this year alone. And despite budget cuts, the THA still increased next year's travel budget to $306,000. That's up more than 30%. The investigators also reviewed other agencies within the same 3-year time period. While the Tampa Housing Authority was spending almost $504,000, we discovered it was 64% more on travel and training than the Miami-Dade Housing Authority. Miami-Dade spent $307,000 in the same time period, while operating on a budget almost 5 times larger.
Things are changing.
Records reveal Tampa Housing CEO Jerome Ryans has spent more than $28,000 in the past 3 years traveling to conferences. And you've spent the past 3 years with more than several hundred. Well, I would like to know from you about the hundreds of thousands of dollars you allowed. We've seen this before. Ryans ran from us earlier this year when we questioned him about his salary.
I don't apologize for my salary to anybody, and I'm through with it.
We also wanted to ask Ryans why taxpayers picked up the bill for valet parking for him in Orlando, or Best of Boston tours for board members and staff, or why several staffers stayed at expensive hotels, in some cases for up to $400 a night. Dr. Harvey, you're the chairman of the board. The board itself has spent almost $100,000 in taxpayer money going to San Francisco, to Boston, to New Orleans. Is that appropriate when the Housing Authority...
I don't have a comment. Thank you.
And so the taxpayers don't have a right to know about this?
They can come to this office anytime they want to.
But the king of travel is the number 2 man in the agency, Leroy Moore. Moore has spent more than $60,000 of public money traveling to conferences in the past 3 years. Mr. Moore, which city did you enjoy the most on the taxpayers' dime? San Francisco, Boston, New Orleans, Chicago, New York?
Mike Deason, you've received all of our reports for the last 5 years. It shows that this housing authority spent between $160,000 and $180,000 a year on travel and training. You're really being obnoxious. I don't know why your station allows you to continue to put out this junk, but it's really running thin.
But what is really running thin is the budget at the Tampa Housing Authority, which readily admits because of cuts, it may not be able to provide the same degree of services for its residents, some of whom live in these rundown, unair-conditioned apartments, while at the same time, some board and staff members booked rooms at golf and beach resorts so they could attend conferences on the taxpayer dime.
You spent $60,000.
Do you want to continue to be obnoxious?
Will you answer the question?
I've answered your question.
But there are more questions to be answered. U.S. Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa says he is shocked by what he calls excessive travel by public housing authorities across the United States. Now the senator is calling for an investigation into the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which provides the majority of funding for the Tampa Housing Authority. And you can bet that the 10 News investigators will stay on top of this and let you know what happens.
It was 2004 when Hurricane Charlie charged across Florida. You may remember that. Obviously, everybody does. After the storm, some local leaders saw opportunity filing big damage claims.
Yeah, but there's a big question. What happened to all that insurance money? And you might not like what we found. Here's 10 News investigator Mike Deason with a story you will see only on 10.
It's disaster.
When Hurricane Charlie unleashed its fury on Florida in 2004, it left a trail of damage from businesses to homes.
We lost everything.
After the storm, cities and counties lined up with insurance claims, including Hardy County. Some county officials claimed the Hardy County Civic Center in Wauchula was one of its buildings that had taken a beating in the storm. But Hardy County Commissioner Grady Johnson doesn't buy it.
What kind of damage was here? It appears to me very little.
Johnson, a retired deputy sheriff, says the county filed a huge claim on the Civic Center to fix up the alleged storm damage. He wants to know where all that money went.
It appears to me that there's well over $1 million been paid out on this.
On this building?
On this building.
Look at a picture of the Civic Center the day after Charlie hit. It doesn't look much different from today. Even the water damage on the inside seems minimal, especially when you consider it has a terrazzo floor. But the bill for emergency drying was $576,000.
When I first seen that, it just took my breath away. $500,000 to pump water or remove water from a concrete building, which you have seen, terrazzo floors.
And it's not just the Civic Center. Johnson is also upset about the figures he's seen for the county-owned Rest Haven nursing home.
There's over $1 million was supposed to have been spent here, and the figures that I've seen after this hurricane.
Do you believe that?
No, sir. No, sir.
Wendell Cotton is on the board of directors of Rest Haven. He says the building on the outside and inside is 40 years old and looks it. And it doesn't look like hundreds of thousands were spent on the building just 9 years ago.
When you hear that they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars out here, what do you think?
I think it's a joke. Where's this money at? What happened to it? Because it certainly didn't go in this building, and it did not go in that building over there.
9 years after Charlie, FEMA still has not closed the file. Back then, the agency discovered conflicts on damage description, scope of work, and cost estimates. So we wanted to get some answers. Doug Knight was the county point person for repairs.
But people are asking questions about how the money was spent in Hurricane Charlie.
Pull the file.
Well, I have pulled the file.
Mike.
I have pulled the public records.
Mike, thank you. Have a good day.
Hey, you have a good one too, Doug.
Knight refused to answer our questions, but County Manager Lex Albritton was Knight's boss after the storm. Albritton claims he's convinced the millions of dollars of repairs were all done.
Everything. It's all as documented as it can be documented. I can't make you believe it.
But through these scathing letters and emails obtained by the 10 News investigators, as well as comments at public meetings, then Hardy County Clerk of Court Hugh Bradley charged that Albritton and his hired gun, Doug Knight, lied about whether the people who did the repairs were actually approved to do it. Broke the law when they authorized the payout of insurance money without going through the clerk of court's office, and may have paid some vendors twice for the same work. The battle between the clerk, who is now retired, and County Manager Albritton over the way the money was spent came to a head at this county meeting 1 year ago.
People really, truly want integrity, and they want honesty, and they want to know that there are not a few in position that are trying to, for whatever reason, divert $1 million.
The belief that that money is going to some shell company that then divided it and turned it back to the employee myself is pure bull.
Well, it's true it's not accounted for in his accounting records. That doesn't mean it's not accounted for.
But Commissioner Johnson, the retired deputy, isn't satisfied. He wants the U.S. Attorney to open a federal investigation into where the money went. Money that could have helped people who really suffered from the storm.
The evidence is so overwhelming that there is something seriously wrong involving a lot of money.
Meantime, while Doug Knight, who led the insurance efforts for the county during Charlie, wouldn't answer our questions on camera, he did email me a statement that attacked former clerk of court Hugh Bradley. Knight says he doesn't believe Bradley has the competency to handle money appropriations for Charlie or grasp the claim loss and the documentation. Bradley, who is retired and traveling out of state, couldn't be reached, but it's worth noting that he spent 15 years as the chief financial officer of Hardee County, and he is the only one that state law says should be handling the money and the payouts, not the county manager nor his hired gun, Doug Knight. We'll stay on top of it. More to come.
Good evening, I'm Reginald Roundtree.
And I'm Heather Van Est. Our top story tonight, a 10 News investigation. A flight bound for Florida that some airline pilots say appeared to have been used as a dry run for terrorists.
10 News investigator Mike Deason has obtained an internal memo that details the frightening incident. He's here right now with a story you'll see only on 10.
You will remember this day as long as you live.
The memories and images of 9/11 are seared into the minds of almost every American. And because of federal efforts to prevent a similar attack, many believe it could never happen again.
Very foolish.
Wolf Koch is the chairman of the Airline Pilots Association International Aviation Security Committee.
They're going to try it again. 100%. No question in my mind, they're going to try it again.
Koch, as well as many other flight crews, are concerned the planning may already be underway. This memo, obtained by the 10 News investigators from the union that represents pilots for U.S. Airways, says there have been several cases recently throughout the airline industry of what appears to be probes or dry runs to test our procedures and reaction to an in-flight threat.
If a dry run's occurring, the attack is shortly following.
The pilots say the most recent dry run occurred on Flight 1880 on September 2nd. The flight left Reagan International Airport for Washington, headed for Orlando International. Crew members say that shortly after takeoff, a group of 4, quote, Middle Eastern men caused a commotion. The witnesses claim one of the men ran from his seat and coach toward the flight deck door. He made a hard left and entered the forward bathroom, quote, for a considerable length of time. While he was in there, the other 3 men proceeded to move about the cabin, changing seats, opening overhead bins, and, quote, generally making a scene. The 10 News investigators contacted both U.S. Airways and TSA, and both confirmed the incident. The TSA told us it takes all reports of suspicious activity aboard aircraft seriously. The matter requires no further investigation at this time.
They're liars. They're flat-out liars.
This federal air marshal says several flights he has worked have been the targets of dry runs, and he and most of his colleagues believe no matter what the TSA says about no need for further investigation, the incident aboard Flight 1880 is serious.
And while until now there has been absolutely no publicity about the U.S. Airways flight from D.C. to here at Orlando International Airport, airline security experts say incidents like this should not and cannot be ignored.
We're waiting for the next 9/11 to happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Now, that federal air marshal, whose identity we are not revealing because agency rules prohibit him from talking to the media, says the TSA doesn't want the flying public to be aware of the problems with these terrorist probes. The air marshal and others we have spoken to say several flights they have worked have been targets of dry runs, and most of his colleagues believe no matter what the TSA says, the incident aboard Flight 1880
is serious.
Well, Mike, with all of the screenings to even get on a plane, how can a terrorist take over a flight now?
Well, we've obtained other TSA memos that say there are a number of ways. One, they warn about colleagues of terrorists working on the ground crew smuggling items into the laboratory, which is why there was so much concern about the one being inside the bathroom for such a long time. Two, by using items that get through screening and then assembling a weapon on board, such as a camera, and using parts of that. And three, in July, the head of the TSA warned people in the agency to be aware of a new liquid explosive that clothes could be dipped into. When it dries, it passes through screening, and then it can be detonated on a plane with no problem and terrible results.
Is there any proof, though, that the dry runs actually lead to further action?
Well, the most terrifying one is with the actor James Woods. He was on a flight and noticed a commotion. He called the flight attendant, who then got the captain and said, "Look what's going on." They then notified the FBI. Nothing else was done. That flight was August 2001, and Mohammed Atta was later identified as one of the men on the flight. He was one of the lead hijackers in 9/11.
Well, when you elect someone to represent you, their salary is paid by your tax dollars. But what if some of those local leaders took that paycheck plus turned around and used their position to take millions more of your taxpayer dollars to fund their own business deals?
Well, the 10 News investigators found that it happened right here in one Bay Area county, and the investigator, Mike Deason, who first broke this story, has found the smoking gun that proves it.
And so I'm proud of the work that's been done.
But Tampa State Representative Jamie Grant is talking about a multi-million-dollar taxpayer grant he received from Hardee County. But some who live in Hardee, like retired Air Force pilot Hank Kuhlman, say Grant should be ashamed.
There are specific Florida statutes that prohibit using your position as an elected official to your special private gain. You can't do that.
But the 10 News investigators have found evidence that appears to show Grant and another state rep, Jason Broder, got $2.6 million in taxpayer money because they're elected officials. Listen to a conversation before a Hardee County Industrial Development Authority, or IDA, meeting as the number 2 person in the agency explains why it's important that the IDA give the millions to Grant's company.
Not to mention Jamie, the one on the right. The first one.
Yes.
To the computer. He's a state representative.
Really? Oh, that helps.
And then there's another partner who is not here today, who is also a state representative.
Gotcha. That can always help.
The staffer, Sarah Pelham, explains it's good for the county to give big bucks to friendly legislators.
So it's not only beneficial for, them to get help from us, it's beneficial for us to help them. Yes.
Could be cool.
When we tried to ask Bill Lambert, the head of the agency that gave the grant, he said it would take 3 days to explain and wasn't happy when I recorded his reply with my iPhone. I don't have 3 days to spend with you. That's fine. But I do want to ask you a couple of questions. Give me my phone. Give me my phone. Give me my phone. I'll call the police that you actually... Don't you touch my phone. And that's why Grant is now the target of this ethics complaint filed by Kuhlman, who points out that Grant sold his company without telling Hardee County, as he was supposed to, in return for more than 1 million shares of stock of the new company, as well as a consulting agreement that paid him several $1,000s. And state records now show that Grant was able to increase his net worth from a little more than $1,000 to more than $100,000 in less than 2 years.
The people of Hardee County are figuring it out.
Meantime, Grant says this complaint has no merit and I am confident it'll be dismissed. He says it's nothing more than an attempt to tarnish my reputation at the urging of special interests. The claims made are patently false, and he says I look forward to them being proven as such.
There is nothing that we have ever done that has not been fully transparent.
According to the Auditor General, that's not exactly true. And the worst part, the taxpayer grant was supposed to help people in Hardee County, one of the state's poorest counties, get jobs. But so far, only a handful of people have been hired, and many of them are family members of local leaders. And that includes the husband of Sarah Pelham, who we heard saying on the tape it would be good for Hardee County to give the lawmakers the money. It was good for Sarah's family for sure. Now we'll have to see if the State Ethics Commission cracks down on Representative Grant and his colleagues.
If the shower overflows, the disposal doesn't work, or the toilet clogs, you usually need a plumber.
We had company, and it stopped up.
Peggy Mister is talking about this toilet in her half bathroom. Her husband saw an ad for plumbing rescue, and the company sent out a crew with a drain camera to inspect her pipes.
And he came in with this bill, and it was for like $8,000 some dollars.
To fix your stopped up toilet?
Yes.
Mr. agreed to the price because Plumbing Rescue offered a 10-year guarantee. But within a week, the toilet clogged. It was fixed. Clogged again a week later, and this time the company said it would take more work to fix the problem.
And now they want another $5,000 to fix the toilet that they were going to fix initially.
And additionally, yes. So I said, I want to get another opinion.
According to Mr., Plumbing Rescue tried to pressure her. The estimate from the second plumber was several $1,000s less, and the problem was fixed.
He told me that my pipes were collapsed under the house.
Frank Stein received an estimate of $8,200 from Plumbing Rescue to fix a shower clog. He got a second estimate from another plumber, this time only $1,200.
They came out and they cameraed my line, and they found no evidence of collapsed pipes.
The main objective was to upsell every single job and, obviously make them the most money.
Roy Stacy says he left Plumbing Rescue because the company was more interested in increasing sales instead of fixing the problem. Stacy isn't alone. This plumber, who we'll call Jose, says he left Plumbing Rescue for the same reason.
And they can get in the door, and then it's sales, high pressure sales, and giving people maybe more than what they need.
The 10 News investigators checked state records which say an investigation by the Division of Insurance Fraud revealed multiple complaints against the company and accounts of deceptive practices and allegations of unnecessary repairs using scare tactics and false statements. And we checked online sites that rate plumbers and found multiple complaints against the company, often alleging that plumbing repair pushed expensive and unneeded repairs. We wanted to put Plumbing Rescue to the test ourselves, so we flipped the breaker on the garbage disposal in this rental home.
Well, first thing we do, we check to make sure that there is power, which apparently there is not power here.
We called in veteran plumber Bill Jackson to check it out. He said in a case like this, it's plumbing 101 to check the breaker box.
This is the disposal breaker. It is off.
Next, we had our producer call Plumbing Rescue.
I'm having a problem with my garbage disposal.
They sent out a technician to check out the garbage disposal. And after less than 10 minutes, he told our producer there was only one solution. The disposal would have to be replaced.
Mike Thiessen with Channel 10.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir. The garbage disposal is shot?
Well, we have a special going right now, so, the only other thing to do would be to take it apart. And
would that cost more?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you think to check the breaker box?
No, I didn't even check the breaker box.
Okay. Would it surprise you if I told you if you turned the breaker on, the garbage disposal?
I honestly didn't even think about that,
It's called Plumbing 101. But when we walked over to the breaker box, flipped the breaker, and then turned it on, the disposal, it worked. Kraft was so impressed he had to try it a couple of times to see for himself. But still, he tried to convince us he was giving our producer a great deal.
We're running a special for $79. For what it costs us in gas and everything to come out here for $79, we're not looking to make a bunch of money.
But there's nothing wrong with this garbage disposal.
Yeah.
So if we hadn't been here, she would have spent $150, $175
yeah.
on a garbage disposal she didn't need.
But our former plumbing rescue employee wasn't surprised by what we found.
Tactics that are used is just basically a come on, and it's a hook.
And while the owner of Plumbing Rescue, Jim Myers, didn't want to appear on camera, he did admit to us that his company is not perfect, but he says they're trying to improve. However, former employees we talked to say the pressure is so intense to meet Plumbing Rescue's quota of averaging $1,000 per call makes technicians charge big bucks and sell as much as they can.
You shouldn't treat people like that.
Peggy Mister agrees.
And I just want them stopped.
But part of the problem is that when someone from Plumbing Rescue comes out on a call, there's a good chance they're not a plumber. They're working as a technician under the owner's license. For example, David Kraft, who didn't check the breaker box, isn't a licensed plumber. He didn't even have one of these things. It's called an Allen wrench or an Allen key, and it's the first thing you use to try to fix a frozen garbage disposal. But as long as technicians are allowed to do plumbers' jobs, the chance for problems just increase and increase and increase.
Very eye-opening. The big question, is anyone going to step in and do anything about it?
Well, the State Division of Insurance Fraud is talking to all our victims, talking to the people who worked for the company, and there is a possibility of indictments coming out in the next couple of weeks, of course. We will stay on top of it.
I know you will. All right, Mike Deason, thanks for joining us tonight.